Hi guys, and welcome to my channel Wrestling with Books, where today we're going to be doing the All Hallows Eve Book Tag. I was tagged in this by Lydia at Vintage Nectarines, who also created this tag. So I am super excited to do it. You can't see my little friend here. There he is, just letting me pet him through this video. And we are really excited to just talk about the Halloween season and some festive books. So let's get to it. This time I did prepare my answers ahead of time, so I will be looking to my phone throughout this video for the prompts and for my answers. And to do this, I went through my Goodreads backlog because I wanted to try to give some different answers than I've already spoken about on the short time that I've had this channel. So I'm going to include the publication dates, and it'll be fun to kind of go back in time. So if you've read any of the books I've mentioned, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Now, the first prompt is, I put a spell on you, a book with witches, and I am picking Bewitching by Alex Flynn. This came out in 2012 after the movie, and which was a book adaptation of Beastly, which is an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. I loved the movie Beastly. I loved it more than the book. I don't know, it was like, you know, and I'm well, I don't know, it was great. I'm sorry, I was gonna say I know it's not great, but no, it was, okay? And the best part of it was Mary-Kate Olsen as the witch. I mean, she wasn't in it with her sister, it was just MKO, and she was fabulous. And I personally think it was her performance as the witch Kendra that inspired Alex Flynn to do more books on Kendra. Now that's just me saying this, you know, Alex Flynn has never, you know, said this to me, and I've never read it about her. But once you have Mary-Kate Olsen playing your witch, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do more with that witch. So the witch or enchantress, as we know her in Beauty and the Beast, who puts the spell on the character in Beastly, we learn about her other spells and you know, her history, and a lot of her spells have gone awry. That's kind of the theme with Kendra here, and she's a bit of a misfit and whatnot, but oh, it was just a fun time. That was a fun time of life when there were all these Alex Flynn retellings, and I don't know, 2012 was a fun book year, you know? Number 2, Something Lurks Under the Bed, a book with monsters or creatures. So for this one, I'm picking a middle grade book I read called Lemons by Melissa Savage. This was published in 2017, and it's about a girl who moves to a new town to live with her grandfather, and she does make one good friend there. And he is the only one who indulges her on this belief that Bigfoot, not only is Bigfoot real, but that he's like in the backyard. So it's a great middle grade book, but sometimes I really like reading them as adults because they are so filled with like themes and lessons, and it doesn't feel like I'm reading something that isn't meant for me. I mean, I do see how a child would benefit from reading it and the lessons learned and everything, but throughout the whole time, I'm really enjoying it myself. And Lemons was a fantastic read that I would recommend to children and adults alike. And I think, you know, Bigfoot is always a fun idea to explore. Ooh, number 3, Blood Types. A book with vampires or a murder mystery. So I decided to pick something that you don't normally associate as a murder mystery, but I've been on such a kick with these books, and it is the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. So this is a murder mystery because the plot is the curator of a museum has been murdered, and he leaves all these really intense clues. Mister. All these intense clues that symbologist Robert Langdon is really probably the only one who can figure it out and solve this. So I love all the Dan Brown books, and I've been watching the films lately, anticipating the new series, The Lost Symbol, which is not written as a prequel, but they in the show treat it as a prequel to all the movies. And so far, I'm just one episode in. I saw the first episode and did enjoy it. But the Da Vinci Code, this is, I mean, it's what's great about a mystery like the Da Vinci Code is that they are, every next step is a mystery. So you're getting payoffs the whole time because, you know, first there's the clue to this, then they figure it out, then the clue to this, then they figure it out, then the clue to this. So you're getting payoffs leading up until the final payoff, and it's thrilling, it's exciting, and it's not that the movies are bad. The movies are good, but there's no way, even if the movie was like 3 hours, which they're not, but there's no way in the time frame of a movie you're gonna be able to do what Dan Brown does in these books. So I highly recommend these books. I think they're a blast. Number 4, Trick or Treat, a book that's sweet or features a sweet shop or bakery. So I actually didn't have as many like bakery books in my backlog as I thought, but I did have this book with some cookies on the cover, though it's not bakery based at all. But I thought, you know, in the spirit of changing things up, I would pick it, and it's Sweethearts by Sarah Zarr, and this was published in 2008. So when I read this, I believe I got it from, what's it called? Book. It's a book rental service where it's like it's like what Netflix used to be with DVDs. That's what this does with books. And I'll put up what the address is. And that was really handy for me at the time when I was working and maybe didn't have the time to just peruse the library shelves like I like to do. I would then peruse this website and pick what I'd want them to send me, and then each time I returned my books, they would then send 3 new ones based on my list. So I thought that was a great platform. I have like sent them my resume all the time, being like, let me market for you. You could be so much huger. But that's neither here nor there. I think they do an audiobook rental service too. But see, that's why they need me in marketing, because everyone talks about, you know, Audible and all these other things. And it's like, look, you have a platform. Anyway, so I picked this book for the cover and not for the sweets being part of the plot. Okay, it's about Jenna who loses her best friend and who she believes is her soulmate, Cameron, at 9. So that's a really traumatic thing to go through at 9. And then in the years since, she kind of takes on this new identity and becomes, you know, the really it girl, the really popular girl. Then years later, while she's in high school as this popular girl, Cameron comes back. Oh, that's like, I'll leave it there because that's your story. That's like intense. But this was a short read. I remember that. Obviously I read it a long time ago. I remember like reading it in the break room of my job at the time. But it was sad and it was serious, but it was, you know, something that has stuck with me enough that every time I see it in my Goodreads, you know, I'm like, oh, I remember that. That was me scrolling Goodreads. Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice, a cozy fall book or a book that features fall. So I'm not sure if this book is in fall or in several seasons, but it is cozy AF, as the people say. And it is The Shop on Blossom Street by Debbie Maycomer. This was originally published in 2003, but like, oh, I just love this book so much. I love it. So The Shop on Blossom Street is a series by Debbie Maycomer, as I said, and it shadows Lydia, who is I believe it's brain cancer survivor. She's a cancer survivor and ends up opening a knitting and yarn shop called A Good Yarn. And this book takes place when she decides to do a knitting class, and it follows the stories of 3 other women who sign up for the class. Each of them has a really great story, and as the series continues on, sometimes you get the same character, sometimes you get new ones. You mostly get new ones with some of the old ones sprinkled throughout, and it is terrific. To me, it is like the pinnacle of these women's fiction cozy series that you see. So if you like those books and you haven't done this yet, oh, please give it a shot. It's based in Seattle. They did do a Hallmark series on one of her other book series, Cedar Cove, but I have always found this one to be even better. It's just all cozy, all cozy. I could just keep repeating that over and over, but I think I covered it. Cozy Seattle town, following all the women. Next, All Hallows Eve. A book with lots of characters, or a book that features costumes. So I kept going to the backlog. You know, like I'm picking books that I haven't spoken about in ages. And one of them includes Point Click Love by Molly Shapiro. And this came out in 2011. I would associate this more of like a domestic read. I picked it because it has a lot of characters, because we have 4 women who are learning at this new age of just the internet and texting and Facebook messaging and the different ways that affects each of their lives. So I took some notes about how it did with each of them. You know, we have one who's a divorced mother of 2 who's trying online dating. One is using the internet to look for a sperm donor. One falls deep into celebrity gossip and those sites in order to shadow over the issues with her own life. And then one finds herself drawn to another coworker and, you know, messaging and how ugly that can get. So I thought I enjoyed this at the time. I remember it being just like a quick and fun read. I had won it, I'm pretty sure I won it from a blog at the time called Chick Lit Is Not Dead. And since then, the authors of that blog have become authors themselves. I believe it's now LizandLisa.com or Lisa and Liz, and they're authors of great chick lit or women's fiction books. So it's just fun to see how things pan out over the years. Ooh, okay, next we have Fright Night, a book that scared you or scares you or turned out different than you thought. So I picked a book that scared me, and it was The Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. So this is like before Silence of the Lambs. This book, I never used to get scared at night until I read this book, because you just see how you could be a family asleep in your bed and somebody could like come in there. That's scary. And so Special Agent Jack Crawford has to turn to Will Graham after the serial killer, who I mentioned, the Tooth Fairy, has claimed a second family as victims. And Graham is still scarred from capturing Hannibal Lecter, but finds himself needing to turn to him to solve this case. I loved this book. I've read it several times despite how it scared me. It's one of my absolute favorites, you know, a book I reread, and I really recommend it, especially if you like horror films and you've enjoyed Silence of the Lambs or any of the Hannibal, you know, material that's out there, because there's a lot of different iterations we've seen of that. But if you haven't read The Red Dragon, I think it excels as a book, which perhaps is why we haven't seen it really excel in a movie. I think you should try reading A Haunting We Will Go, a book with a haunted house or place. And I picked something different because normally I only come up with the Truly Devious series. I have the 4th one from the library, that's why I have it up there, that I plan on reading. But I wanted to pick something different, since I actually even spoke about that in the last tag I did. So I am picking, hear me out, it is called Sphere. It's Sphere by Michael Crichton, or is it Crichton? Crichton. I always said Crichton. But this was published in May 1987. This book is as old as I am. But oh, it is so good. Okay, so a group of scientists are rushed to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean to investigate essentially it's like a spaceship that is at the bottom of the ocean. And what they find is that 1, it's not damaged. 2, it's been there for at least like 300 years. And this becomes a haunting-like setting because things start happening. So even though this isn't your traditional definition of a haunting, this is a haunting atmosphere because stuff happens, and it's excellent. It's absolutely excellent. I think you'll all enjoy it, especially if you've read some of his other books. But if you like something where you don't know what's happening next, maybe you like a little science in your books, then definitely add this to your list. Next we have Superstitious Bad Luck, a book with a black cat or a book that features cats. And can you believe that, like, I have not read that many cat books. I know, my honeybee. I have this one next to me here, 97 Ways to Make a Cat Like You. None of them work. None of them. A cat's not gonna like you. If he don't wanna like you, he's not gonna like you. I guess all 97 prompts should be like, try a new cat, try a new cat. Because it's just, you know, the cat chooses. You don't, the cat chooses. Anyway, so I picked Dewey, the small town library cat who touched the world by Vicki Myron, and this was published in 2008. I don't typically read cat books because I learned in this book sometimes sad cat stories come up in cat books. So, and it was just, most of the story is good and great, but there was just one little thing that she mentions happening to her dad's cat that, like, nope. So, you know, but they find this cat at the bottom of a book chute in the winter, so it's like freezing, but they end up saving him and he becomes the library cat and he becomes this nationwide phenomenon. So it is a great story. It is a great story to promote that all stores should have cats, that all libraries should have a library cat, schools should have a school cat, you know, everybody should have cats. And this book promotes that. So if you're trying to convince your librarian that they need a cat, like, this is a book to just shout at the rooftops. And the last one is It's So Enchanting, a book with wizards, or a book that features an enchanted or magical world.
Yesterday, Knicks defeated Wizards 117-99.
Echo off.
You know, poor Echo thinks I was asking about the Wizards game, and I was not. She should know better. This is a book video. I have no interest whatsoever. Unless it's Space Jam, I'm not watching the game. Okay, so I'm picking Hex Hall by Rachel Hawkins. Does anybody remember when, like, people were talking about Hex Hall all the time? This was published in 2010. And, like, you know, when people say, oh, this book is popular on Book Talk and BookTube, like, this was popular on, like, book blogs, like, back in the day. It was talked about all the time. And it's about a girl, her name is Sophie, and she discovers that she's a witch and her estranged father is a warlock. And she's bringing too much human attention over spells and failed efforts, and so she gets sent to this magical boarding school. It's a paranormal boarding school. So if you like boarding school books, I think you'll like this. It's not really Harry Potter vibes though. It's more like, you know, because it's not just witches and wizards, it's warlocks and maybe vampires and fairies and shapes and shifters, and it's a reform school. So this isn't for like Hogwarts brightest. It's for, you know, some troubled kids. So it's a lot of fun. And it's a YA book, and I think you will like it if you like getting some, you know, some different types of mythical and magical characters into your reading repertoire. And those were all the 10 questions, so I'd like to tag some friends. I want to tag Shelley at Percy Does Everything. I haven't warned you, but if it fits into your schedule, I'd love to see you do this. And I don't know if LinzeeBee has been tagged, so I'm going to tag her as well. Thank you for coming around for another BookTube video, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Hello. Oh, look at you, so handsome. You're so handsome. What do you want to read? You want to read a book?